Welcome everybody to our second webinar in the year 2021. It's going to be the first webinar in what we call the Stages of Cow series. Stages of Cow is a concept that we of Agri-Comfort developed to kind of split every life station of a dairy cow into one of the stages. The first three stages are calf stages, and especially the first stage, who would have thought it, is the beginning of the life of a dairy calf. We call it the colostrum in the neonatal phase, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And like I said, this is going to be a series, so please stay tuned in for further invitations and emails. We're going to go through all 7 stages throughout the year. Now let's dive right in. I want to say hi to Gerwin Meesters here, who's here with me today as a consultant. Gerwin, can you please introduce yourself and tell everyone what's your contact with Agri-Plastics and calves and what makes you a calf housing expert?
Yeah, hello, my name is Gerwin Meesters. Probably not the most easiest name to pronounce if you're not from the Netherlands, but anyhow, I'm working for Agri-Plastics Netherlands for a little over 11 years now, and yeah, that's all that I do. Telling farmers about our products and showing them to them, and what I prefer the most is let them try at their own farms, that they can try our products with their calves on their farm, with their employees or their family members, and yeah, that's the way we are doing business in the Netherlands, and not only the Netherlands but also Belgium and Germany.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and having I think we first met at Eurotier in 2014 when I first joined the team of Agri-Plastics for a little intermediate job. Yeah. And exactly, and since yeah, about 2.5 years ago now, I'm part of the Agri-Plastics international team. And since I'm based in Germany, you and I are working together quite a bit in the German and Benelux market, and yeah, been to plenty of farms and farm shows together and seen calves become happy. Let's say.
Yeah. Right. Calves are happy. We are happy too.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here, taking the time, talking about this today.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's dive right in. So I wanted to start this with a little poll, like a little question to everybody that's listening right now. I wanted to ask you which type of place you're using for your calf after it's born. Like we said, we're going to talk about the newborn calves right now. So we're going to talk about everything that happens right after birth to the calf to, let's say, the 3rd day of life. And I want to see, what are you doing with the calf in the first hour after birth? Answers are just coming in. I'm just going to let this run for about a minute here, and then I'm going to close it. Gerwin, and your Agri-Plastics Netherlands is based on a farm as well, on the Van Spijker farm. Yeah. What is happening there? What is the strategy in that farm?
Yeah, well, it says that I'm a panelist, so I can't vote. So,
so you can tell us.
What we're doing here is that the cows calve in a big straw pen, and we have some small movable calf pens close to the calving pen. And within the first week, the calves move over to calf hutches outside.
I see. Okay.
The first days, it depends a little bit on the weather outside. It depends a little bit on how quick a calf is.
Yeah. So it's more like an individual decision, like a fixed mark. Yep. 3rd day, you're out. Like my mom used to say, she was like, told me since I was a little kid, she was like, when you're 18, you're gonna move out. All I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's and it also depends a little bit on how many space you have in those movable.
Yeah. Sure.
The weather is good, and then you need more cuddle boxes or moving calf pens, you move them outside a little bit earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. Or if you maybe have more calves in a shorter period of time or something like that.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I shared the results here with you guys, and everyone. So most people answered that they're gonna keep the calf inside the calving pen with the mother for the first hour after birth, and that's all right. But we're gonna talk about pros and cons here, and quite a few people already move it into its designated hutch or pen where it's supposed to stay the next couple of weeks. And only a very few number of people use what you just described with that box. I'm a little surprised to see that nobody puts them into a warming box. I think when I look at the panelists, we don't have so many people from North America here right now. I think that would be more common there, because that's what I heard, especially from like Canada, that those like warming pens are very popular. You know, maybe I'm wrong, but nobody said this for now. So a lot of people said that they leave the calf in the calving pen. So this is also what we're seeing here in this picture on the right. There's the mom and the calf together in the same pen, and the cow is licking the calf dry. But when we look at the picture a little bit more in detail, we also see there's another cow over here. And we can see that it's pretty deep straw, fresh, clean straw, admittedly, but it's pretty deep straw. And I would just assume from personal experience, this is not put in just right now for this 2 calves calving. This is a pack of straw. And there's fresh straw been put over it probably on a daily basis, which is perfect for the cows. This is really good. It gives the cows really good footing. It's dry and safe area to calve in. For the baby lions on a soft, fresh straw pack, that's good. But the calf really shouldn't stay in this area for too long. Because the calf, like this calf too, has a high chance of getting hurt by its mother or by other cows through trampling. I, in my personal experience working on dairy farms, actually experienced that twice in that time, that we had heifers especially being kind of like freaking out after calving and like just a little uncontrolled, running around, just not caring about their calf, and they just trampled the baby. And we had injuries to the extremities, to the legs. Afterwards, they both healed up fine, but that was just a pure consequence of the fact that the calves were in the calf pen. And for the calf, this is actually quite a dirty environment. It has a high risk of infection with example pathogens like mycobacteria for Johne's disease, which can be ubiquitous in the cow's manure, which doesn't make the cow clinically sick, so you don't necessarily know about this, but the calf already may get this in its mouth when it's in this environment. And once the pathogen's basically in, it's in, and you can't really eliminate it from its body again. There's also been a lot of research done on mastitis pathogens, that calves that are actually been exposed to cows' subclinical mastitis pathogens, dairy heifer calves ingesting them, they kind of collect them in their body and they will always be present. They're not clinically sick, they don't have mastitis as a baby calf, but the mastitis pathogen is already there. And this is how you keep it in your herd. This is how it always stays. And it's just not a break in the infectious chain. The mom gives it to the baby, and the longer the baby stays in this pen, the higher the risk. And then there's the third aspect of this. This little wet calf baby here is very cold right now, comes from the very warm uterus womb, and it never needed to regulate its own body temperature before. It has a really harsh transition here right now, and on top of that, it's wet. So it's really hard for it to start building up its own body heat and regulate its body temperature in a cold environment. So this little baby calf actually needs a little bit of substitute heat, especially when Gerwin was just saying if it's maybe a colder day outside in winter in Northern Europe, or let's say in the United States or in Russia, it can be very, very cold in the winter, and that can be very hard on a really young, wet baby calf like that. And you want to give extra heat to it with like maybe a heat lamp or just a generally warmer environment, which would be really bad for the cow. Those two, or all of those adult cows here and that baby calf have very different needs and temperature. So it just makes sense to separate the two, but we all see the baby calf has been licked by its mom, which is a stimulus, and the mom licking the calf is also stimulus for her. So we don't want to stop this. We don't want to stop the interaction. We just want to stop the baby from being in here in this pen. So maybe, Gerwin, you like to explain this because you already mentioned this is put in place at your farm, and this is what we recommend from Agri-Plastics anyhow. Do you want to introduce us to the idea of the cuddle box?
Yeah, the whole idea of the cuddle box is allowing the cow to lick and stimulate the calf without the calf being in contact with manure or other bacteria in that calving pen. And also another point of interest is that if a young heifer, for instance, gets his first calf, they quite often have some troubles with losing their milk when being milked the first time. That's a lot easier if the calf is still around, but you don't want to have that calf in that same area. So if you put a calf in a movable calf box or a cuddle box in this case, and you can see in the picture too, this cow is entering the box with her head, and inside that box there's a calf. That calf can never be trapped underneath the cow, and that calf can never be in contact with the manure that's still in the calving pen. But the interaction between the mother and the calf is still there. So yep. I would say all the benefits without all the downsides of keeping the calf close to the cow.
Yeah, and I put the cow signals logo here in the corner, and maybe some people already know this company. It's a company founded by Joep Driesen, and it's a Dutch company called Cow Signals, and they're writing really good books about learning how to interpret the signs that a cow is telling you and how to improve the quality of life and overall health and management environment of your farm, especially with the focus on better cow health and longer cow life. And this, they formed the term cuddle box for this idea of the cow sticking the head into the pen that the calf has already been put into. And I think it's very fitting because the two are actually cuddling there. They're having their little moment of, bonding, experiencing yourself, like taking the smelts and all of that. But like Gerwin said, with the benefits, but a lot of the risks and dangers are reduced, especially for the calf. So what happens next with the calf? So Gerwin, you already mentioned that we want to milk the cow as fast as possible, and we're going to use the stimulus of the cow licking the calf and the hormone release in her body to get milking her as fast as possible. And that is really important because the milk that we're milking here, everybody knows this, I think that's listening, is going to call colostrum, this very first milk. It's high in, very, very high in fat, very, very high in protein compared to normal milk, but most importantly, it's very high in vitamins and antibodies, specific antibodies for passive immune transfer. And the highest concentrate of antibodies in that milk will be right after birth, and it's kind of a curve that goes down from there on. So as soon as we can manage to milk this cow, as soon as we can manage to have the cow release her milk, we will get the highest quality and ingredients of colostrum. So time in milking the colostrum is very, very crucial. And the next time that's very crucial is when the baby calf is actually drinking it, because the gut of the baby calf in the beginning after birth is very, let's say, leaky. It's open to absorb those antibodies and not digest them. So the antibodies can actually transfer over from the gut into the bloodstream and give that calf that passive immunity transfer. And that also goes down. So both curves go down like this over time. So we try to reach the highest point in both. So we have to do, if possible, the milking and the feeding within the first 6 hours. And Jupp Driesen, for example, goes as far as saying you should be in within the first hour for both things, for milking and feeding. And I put another pointer here in my quality parameters, and it's hygiene. And that's something that can't be underestimated, how important it is to have really good hygiene while milking. Your milking equipment needs to be top-notch clean, and the feeding equipment for the calf also needs to be super clean to make sure that the calf is not ingesting anything bad because of that leaky gut situation. If you feed that calf unhygienic milk, which might be no problem a little bit later in its life, in this very first moment where that gut is so absorbent, it can very, very much hurt the calf. It can absorb bacteria directly into its bloodstream, and it can very much limit the effectiveness of your passive transfer, because those two, bacteria and antibodies, are actually fighting for the same entrance door, basically. So you want to give as many entrance doors to antibodies and as little as possible to pathogens, and hygiene is the key to that. So what happens after the calf was fed first and the first hour is kind of done? You already mentioned this too, Gerwin, like you said that at the Van Spijker farm, the calves are staying inside in those movable pens for quite a few days. And this is what we would recommend too. We would say it's good to build up a neonatal station, or however you want to call it, baby calf station or whatever, and have a designated area for those little baby calves for the first couple of days, where they receive their colostrum the first, second, and third time, and then their milk, and you make sure that they drink. Everybody that handles calves knows that those calves that are really young the first couple of days, they need the most work, because you need to go back in and make sure they understand that, yes, this is the nipple you drink from, and yes, you need to stand up for that, and all of that. And after a couple of days, they are sound and good, and they understood the process, and they hear the milk feeding person come, and they jump up and do it. And that's a sign that they're ready to move out of here. But this area is really good to have this special place for those young calves and designated area for them to learn this. And then another aspect is, for example, you can also add a heating lamp, like shown in the left picture here. So that is also what I mentioned right at the beginning, that this little wet baby calf has a hard time transitioning from the womb of its mom to the outer world, where it has to regulate its body temperature by itself. And now here in a little confined space like this, it's very easy to add extra heat with the heat lamp, and you can dry the calf and heat it up very fast, which can increase its health by a lot, especially in the cold, wet climate. And yeah, this is just a lot easier. I had people ask me things like, if I want to put a heat lamp in a hutch, do I have to like cut a hole into the roof and stuff like that? This is already, like, we recommend a hutch without a roof, like the starter pen, and then you can just put the lamp over it, and it's very easy. And when the calf is older than 2-3 days and it can stand on its own, drink on its own, it doesn't need the lamp anyhow, so you don't need to cut a hole into your hutch. Yeah, and you can also see we do recommend having buckets on the pens and already offer a little bit of water and a little bit of feed, concentrate feed to the calves right from the beginning, not because they need it. They really take all their energy and water needs from, I would say, to 95% from the milk they've been fed. But they're already curious, they're already investigating their surroundings and everything you introduce to them already at this time. They don't need to learn later, and you're just starting off quicker and using that curiosity of the first days already by just offering this to them. Yeah, this is the pen that you've already seen in a couple of pictures here. Maybe Gerwin, you can explain how we can use it as a cuddle box, what makes it so suitable for that, and yeah, just what are the features of it?
Yeah, well, this starter pen is available in 3 different versions. in the picture on the slide before this one, you could also see a starter pen without a floor. That's the basic version, of course. If you want to use it for a cuddle box, it's more ideal to have a floor underneath it and wheels. This is not only easy to move the calf from your calving pen to the temporary place in your barn, but it also makes it possible to move the calf with this cuddle box or calf cart, as you can call it then, to your calf hutches. So it's more like a cuddle box and a calf cart in one. Mm-hmm. Because of the use of this starter pen, every calf born on your farm will begin in this cuddle box, in this starter pen. And because of that, it's very important that you can easily clean it. And as you can see in the picture, if you're using this starter pen with a floor, it also comes with a special joint, so you can flip up the top side of the calf pen for easy cleaning. After that, you can flip up the floor as well, so you can clean that one too. Because the last thing you want is that this piece of equipment is spreading diseases all over your calves.
100%, yeah.
100% clean before the next calf comes in. And of course, in those 3 days, it's not that dirty, but it's dirty enough for a young calf to get sick if you don't clean it. Because it's an open top, the ventilation is great. And even if you put a heat lamp in, the pen will still warm up, but it doesn't get, the air inside doesn't get dead. And look a bit like if you're in winter, if you close your windows in your bedroom, everything will be dampy in the morning when you get up, and your windows will be moistured on the inside. But if you put a window open, so more ventilation, and you put an extra jacket on, for instance, or an extra blanket, you still keep warm, but the air quality is a lot better in your room. That's the same with a starter pen. If you close everything off, the air quality will go down real badly.
Yeah. I actually had, I don't know if that ever happened to you, but I think I had it once or twice that people asked me if you can put like a roof over it, or if you put like a plate over it. What would be your response to that? Somebody asked you that?
If it's possible, of course it's possible. If you want to do it, no, I'd rather not to.
Yeah.
It's in most, let's say in 3/4 of the year, you don't even need a heating light, and then the temperature is not, especially here in the Netherlands, it's not that cold that you need a heating light. It's only in short periods. And of course, if you put a plate on top of it, it will keep a little bit more warmth inside. But what actually is happening is that you close off the whole ventilation, and that's something that is causing a lot more harm to the calf than having the temperature a little bit lower. The calf needs to be able to keep itself warm, but it doesn't have to be in a warm spot. If a calf is dry, especially after a day, that calf is as dry as it can be, and it won't be wet after a day. And if there's a lot of straw bedding in that pen, which it also makes it easier to clean after 3 days. So if you ask me, it's a win-win situation. Use more bedding, the air quality will go up, the calf can keep itself warm a lot easier, and you can clean the pen better. So
yeah. And the other thing is that what people always ask, like I mentioned the transition now quite a bit, that the calf has to learn how to make its own body temperature and all of that, and that's very true. But if you put it in that straw bedding that you just mentioned, it works as a nest basically, and the straw also absorbs the the moisture from the amniotic fluids and all of that. That is usually enough. Right now it's like 17 degrees outside. It's not a problem at all. You don't need to put a heat lamp over this calf at all, because the straw insulating the calf around it will give it enough warmth right away. It's the first thing. People, I think, underestimate how much insulation factor or capacity straw has as a bedding. And the other thing is that people always forget that the calf has like one of the most caloric rations that you, or meals that you can even imagine in its belly. And if you fed it its colostrum has such a high fat content, it's ridiculous how much calories this is. Like, it's a ridiculous high number. I don't want to say something wrong here right now. I have not written it down, but it's like something like 10,000 calories or so in those couple liters of colostrum. And that, if a calf has not ingested like a high amount of like bacteria or something like that, the calf has the ability to transform that into warmth. And it was also a warm meal. You feed it at body temperature, and all of that is enough. You don't really need the heating lamp when it's a normal temperature outside. We're not saying it's -30 outside in Russia and the calf is freezing to the side of the hutch in a matter of 2 seconds. Like, that might be too cold, but we're just talking here about German, Dutch, Middle European situations. Most of the time the calf's fine without a heat lamp, and then therefore also without a lid on top of it. And if you're really worried about the cold air falling onto the calf at night, because you, for example, have it under a pretty free roof, and you're saying like, there's cold air dropping in, then I would rather recommend putting a calf jacket onto the calf that leaves the nose open and doesn't trap the air there, but the back where the cold air is falling onto is still protected.
Yeah.
And I think we have a nice example here that we actually see this with the little jackets. He does have a lamp here, but it's not turned on. This is a customer of yours, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about his experiences with this?
Yeah, this farmer bought his first 2 starter pans in, I think it was December. Mm-hmm. And as you can see on the pictures, well, you can't really see where they're put, but it's an like a roof outside, so the calves have a lot of fresh air. Mm-hmm. Every calf has a calf jacket on, as you can see here, to keep them warm. But the fresh air is doing a lot of good to the calves, and every calf that's born will start in this starter pen, a lot of straw, calf jacket on, and then later on they move over to calf stalls outside. But this system works so nice for the farm that they by now they doubled, so they have 4 of these starter pens at the moment.
Yeah.
And
to make the workflow a little easier with the cleaning. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's not only good for the calf, but it's also a lot easier for the dairy farmer itself. Mm-hmm. If you work with outside calf pens or calf hutches, it takes a lot of effort to go out there. For instance, in the middle of the night, if you have a fresh-born calf, give them colostrum. Mm-hmm. So how easier you make it for yourself, the easier it is to do it right. I can't blame a dairy farmer who says, well, I'm not going outside at 3 o'clock at night to give a fresh-born calf colostrum. I wouldn't do either. I don't blame him. But if you have a special area where you can house your calves in the first 1 to 3 days, and you can make it yourself a lot easier feeding that colostrum, then it's not the biggest effort you have to do. Of course, you have to go out and do it, but It makes a difference if you have to go out in your pajamas to a calf hutch somewhere on your farm, or you can leave in the barn.
Yeah.
At least it's dry and you can stand up straight and learn the calf how to drink.
Yeah, and I think something that I didn't emphasize on here quite enough is what I really like about this is the system and the systematical approach about it almost. So you have the same system in place, or you have one system in place and you use the same system for every calf that's born on your dairy farm. So you you know it. You don't have to be like, oh, what's the next step? What's the next step? Where do I put my calf now? You already have the starter pen there, and you just roll it to the front of the gate and you put your calf in. And then you also don't need to move the calf anymore. For me, as somebody that's not as physically strong, it was kind of very hard to carry a 50-kilo bull calf into a cart, and then from the cart into another pen and all of that. And just one transition would have been a great improvement of my quality of life. And if you have an employee, for example, they know exactly what to do. And if you have somebody else there, or you say like to your teenage daughter or something like that in a smaller farm, take care of the calves at night, the system is in place and you have to explain it once and then it runs smoothly. There's no questions. And that in the end leads to a better calf health on a herd level, because you don't leave any calf behind. Every calf is treated the same. Every calf has its steps that it's going through, and that just leads to less errors in that caretaking of those crucial first hours of the calf. And another aspect that I like about this, what you mentioned here, was this special area for the neonatal station, that you're like, this is where every baby calf is, and they're always in the same area under this roof. Everybody knows that those are the baby calves. When I was working on a farm, it was always like, the third box down, those are the young ones, or that is the youngest one, and then the second one on the left side. And if it's always the same person working there, if it's one designated employee, if you're the farmer taking care of it yourself and you have like your list and your system and you know it, it's fine. But especially if it's an operation with multiple people working there, this is a basically foolproof system to make sure that everybody knows those are the vulnerable calves, because they're in this area, they're in the special hutches, and they need special attention and they need special care. So it's just easier for a lot of people. Okay, so we're gonna summarize what we just said here, and I just want to encourage everyone to ask questions again. Unless we don't have any questions, I guess then we're just being let off the hook easy or fast. But yeah, this would be a good opportunity, if anything wasn't answered here really on this topic, to just type in your question in the Q&A section. Yeah, so as a summary of what we just said, we would recommend standardized neonatal care for your calves, starting right after birth to up to, like, let's say 2 to 3, 4 days, something like that. I wouldn't put like a day benchmark on it. I would say when they can stand very steadily and drink solid from the nipple of whatever system you're using, that's when they're ready to move out of this station. It leads to decreased mortality and just an overall better start into a healthy life for those dairy replacement calves. It's an hygienic start. It's the cuddle box system allows the interaction with the cow. It's easier for the milking process of the milking, harvesting the colostrum, because the cow gets that stimulus, that hormone stimulus from licking the calf. So you have the fast colostrum harvest. Calf is also getting its stimulus on its blood circulation from the licking of the cow. And we're just like, farmers are more happy when the cows and calves are more healthy, more happy, system is running smoothly, and you're not fighting biology, you're working with it, you let those two together, but you're still having your benefits for the calves that you want. And like I said before, you have a system in place so everyone on the farm knows what to do, and you just generally don't leave a calf behind. And that's, I think, our goal, just happier calves. You want to add anything to this list, Miss here?
Totally agree on this.
Totally agree on this, okay. Gerwin and I are usually very in sync. Okay, let's get to the questions. Maybe this is another example of how, of another farm that uses the cattle box system. I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but for the starter pen, it's very easy to take the door off like this. That is huge for the cattle box, that you can push it in front of the head gate like that. And the door even opens 180 degrees, so you maybe don't even have to take it off. But if you don't have the space, you can also just unhook it with one simple movement for this situation. And the wheels also lock, correct?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And we have two pedals on those wheels.
Yeah.
So everybody knows if you have only one pedal, then you need to use the nose of your boots to put that lever back up again. We have two pedals, so you always press with your shoes or with your boots. You never have to pull with the nose of your
yeah, I like that too. Yeah,
a lot easier. Yeah,
yeah, but it's very important that it locks, because the cow cannot push the pen away, or if there's a slope or something like that, it's not just rolling away.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we have a couple of questions. Okay, the first question is about pasteurization of the colostrum, going back to the colostrum quality that we're talking about. This is a very big general question, I would say. There's lots of research, lots of data on it. The short answer for me would be, I would prefer to not pasteurize the colostrum, because I feel sometimes it leads to less hygienic harvest. I would prefer if you could do the most hygienic, super clean harvest of milking of the colostrum that you can do, and then feed it right away. I think that would be my very much preferred solution. But if you are like a hygiene freak and you're like, I'm already doing everything super hygienic, but I am concerned about like maybe leftover mastitis pathogens in some of the cows that maybe had a mastitis event happening earlier in a previous lactation, and I'm worried about the subclinical mastitis pathogens that you just mentioned. And if they once enter the calf, then it's a really bad deal, and they can be subclinical, so we don't see any disease. Yes, then the pasteurization is a good measurement as an extra step on safety and quality of the colostrum. But my emphasis is on it's an extra step. It doesn't replace hygiene, because if you have an unhygienic colostrum and you're like, nah, it's fine because I'm still going to pasteurize it, so it doesn't matter, that's wrong. It still matters, because the bacteria will be dead in the colostrum because you pasteurize it, that's true, but it's still going to be in it. And the broken apart bacteria are actually releasing toxins, they're called endotoxins, and they are actually the part of the bacteria that is fighting with the antibodies for the doors that I mentioned in the gut. And you are still very, very much limiting the effectiveness of your passive transfer. So extra step, yes, not to replace other cleaning and hygiene steps in the colostrum harvest. And it's one more question. It's how about using starter pen in a heated shed or a floor for a large farm project? Have you seen it done? Is it needed? Yes, we actually do have a customer that uses that in Russia when it's very, very cold. The calves are coming from different farms, so it's a little bit different setup than what we were just talking about with, for example, Gerwin's Schermeier farm, where the calves are born on the dairy, they're staying on the dairy to be replacement heifers on this dairy. It's a different situation with that customer. They're receiving calves from different dairies from pretty large areas surrounding them. Calves are coming in on transporters, and they have sometimes a 24-hour travel behind them. They're pretty cold, they're sometimes wet from the transport, and that's where they use the starter pen in the heated shed to just warm those calves up very, very fast and give them the first feeding after the transport, and kind of like give them that extra kick back to life. And I think that's a very, very good solution for this specific situation. But for a normal dairy farm, like we discussed before, replacement dairy calf for the same farm, I don't think it's necessary to have a heated shed. It's enough to have good bedding in the pen in a safe, non-drafty, with a roof over it area. And if it's cold, add the jacket. If it's super cold, add the lamp. But you don't need a heating shed. And I see there is a little bit of comments here. Okay, somebody said that we should have added the application of strong iodine solution for the navel of the calf as a routine care after birthing. Yes, I agree with that. You can also use other products. I think there are definitely a couple more steps. There's also maybe a couple of vaccinations that are already been started in that first 3 days that we didn't specifically point out at this point. This is more about the general concept of this farm. But yeah, I agree. Navel disinfection is an important step. Generally, maybe birthing hygiene could be a topic of a future webinar. Anyhow, I think there's a lot to be said about this. Another question about freezing the colostrum and if it damages the quality of it. I have to admit, I'm not a colostrum specialist per se, but my understanding of it that neither pasteurizing, so doing the low heat pasteurize, nor freezing really alters the quality of the colostrum. But I think from what I've learned, there's a lot to be said about how you heat it, how fast you heat it, and how fast you freeze it too. You can do damage by that, but generally freezing is not a bad thing, and it can actually conserve the colostrum really well and can be a nice system to have a bank. Do you do that, Gerwin? Do you freeze colostrum? What's your stance on that?
No, we don't freeze colostrum here. No.
Okay. Do you think it's a quality issue, or is it just not a system you're doing? You're just milking everyone?
Well, of course, there are a lot of different systems that you that you can use, but we're not freezing any colostrum here.
Okay. Yeah, the dairy farm that I got the training done on was also not freezing colostrum. In general, we did have like a little backup in case we really had like a heifer we couldn't milk at all, or something like that we couldn't handle, or something else happened. So we did have like a backup colostrum for calves where we couldn't get any milk out. But we rarely used it because usually it was not a problem to get the milk out of the cow when you let the cow and calf interact. So another question about producers are trouble to getting enough colostrum into the calves, or ones who don't know how much the calves are getting. Well, that's a great question. So thank you, Laurie, for putting that in. Yeah, like I said, it's a really good question. So with the system that we're saying here is kind of like a lot of monitoring happening. So we're kind of saying the calf is getting born, you put it immediately into the cuddle box, and then you milk the cow, and then you feed the cow. So you kind of know in that ideal situation, you know how much the calf did drink. When you maybe don't know how much the calf will drink is when you didn't know a cow would calf because it maybe happened a little bit earlier than you anticipated, and you come in the morning and check on the calving pen before milking, and you see, oh, there's the baby calf and it's already walking around and it probably did drink, but I don't know. Well, I would always try to offer it more because there's a good chance when you checked on the cows last, which should be pretty late at night, and then you come in the morning before milking, usually pretty early. This is still in the 6-hour frame, so you can still make sure the calf is getting the first meal of colostrum, or at least a little top off. And if it really doesn't want to drink anymore and you're like, oh, maybe it's good, I think if it looks healthy and has good like vital signs and all of that, you probably are good to go. If you're really worried about it, you can actually have its blood tested for passive immune transfer. It's not really expensive. Your veterinarian can do that. It's generally a good way of doing that on a herd level to like see how good your passive transfer system is working, to kind of just compare how your calves are doing. But you can also do it individually if you have one that you're really worried about. And if you don't get enough colostrum into a calf when you try to feeding it, that's something that I deliberately didn't go down here on this webinar, the question about drenching or feeding. In short, I would say I would always prefer to see a calf been fed, so it drinks it by itself, because then it already has this first experience like, I start drinking from a teat, because that's what you want the calf to do in the future. And you have the whole like mechanism of the like neurological feedback to the brain of like, yes, you're getting food and all of that. The saliva that's being swallowed that helps with the digestion, all of that. So I would always say, try to get the calf to drink. It's also safer because then the risk of aspiration pneumonia by accidentally inhaling milk is just lower if the calf has been to drink on its own pace. If you have a calf that had a rough birthing or is being born maybe like a little bit premature or has anything else going on that it really doesn't want to drink when you offer it the nipple, you do have to tube it, drench it, because you want to hit that first window and you can't wait for it to get better, and it won't get better without the first feeding of colostrum. So then you do have to drench, but like I said, after a proper try of letting it drink on its own. And then, yeah, you have to drench it and make sure that it definitely gets its first feeding and just get it in. And that's the first step for this calf to getting to better health and strength to start drinking on its own in the future. Okay, I think we're out of questions here. If anybody else has any questions in the future, Gerwin and Gerwin, sorry, and I are both available for you. We're going to have our contacts here on the end of the webinar. Yeah, so just a little what's coming up next. So here is the whole stages of cow kind of, let's say, scheme that we set up. If anybody's interested in that kind of template in this PDF document, you're very happy. We're happy to give it to you. Just contact us. I'm going to share it to you. Also are building up our website right now. I think in the future we can share it, or we're going to have like a training downloading section, and a lot of it is going to be based around those stages. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we're now going to work our way up. So next step is going to be the pre-wean milk calf. So calves that are still drinking milk. And I want to talk about how we can organize that in a large dairy. What are the different options that we have on just organizing that workflow, and what are the like kind of difficulties, and what are solutions around those difficulties, and what can be a good running system for different sizes of dairies. Yeah, it's going to be in about 4 to 5 weeks. We have not set the date yet, but you're going to get an email invitation as usual, and you're going to find the information about it on our social media. Okay, Gerwin, I want to say thank you. Thanks for taking the time.
No problem.
Stayed at work a little later today, just for me.
It's not that bad.
Thank you very much. I think there was a really informative round. I think we got really good information here. We just got another comment here from Laurie. Thank you for the good information. It also goes to you. And yeah, so here are our contacts in case somebody wants to specifically ask a question for Gerwin. If you are interested in getting a starter pen, for example, in, like we said, the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, then he's your man. If you contact me or the team at Agri-Comfort address, this will still go to Gerwin. He's the man. If you're anywhere else in the world, we're still happy to help you. If you have a project with questions, or just contact us. And yeah, just let us know. And thank everybody for tuning in and listening in. And you're gonna hear from me with the follow-up email, with a little bit of research that I collected for you guys. And then you're also gonna get the link to the recording. So if you think there was some useful, helpful information for somebody else you know who wasn't here today, there's gonna be a recording on YouTube later. Okay, bye Gerwin. Have a good rest of your evening.
Take care.